The other day, I was playing Voodoo Child Slight Return, the song that got me into playing guitar in the first place, and I heard it on my studio speakers, and I heard just how much noise there is at the beginning of the track. And I mentioned it to my friend Craig. I said, "Have you listened to Voodoo Child and heard how much noise there is at the beginning of the track?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And I was thinking about how much noise is baked into recordings that I never even noticed because I was just hearing the music come through that noise. And now that I'm really listening to the details of things that I've loved for a long time, I notice, wow, there's a lot of noise. You can hear it, especially in something like a very exposed acoustic guitar recording. I was listening to Julian Lage's World's Fair album because I want to record acoustic guitar that sounds that good. And while I've been trying to improve my recordings of acoustic guitar, especially with my new Martin guitar, I've been combating the background noise because you're recording very delicate finger picking. And there's always this hum I have to deal with or the hiss of the microphones. And I went to that at World's Fair Julian Lage recording, and I realized, nope, there's plenty of noise. You can hear him breathing. You can hear a little bit of the hum of the ambience of the room. There's all sorts of noise, and I never really heard it before because I was listening to the music. So I think there's something to be said about that on this week's Earth Tones. Earth Tones, episode 38, Embrace the Hiss. I have to learn to be better about embracing the hiss. This week I fired up my amp. I've got a 2-Rock. Have my dream amplifier now. I've got this beautiful 2-Rock Studio Signature, and putting it on without even turning it off standby, just turning it on, I heard a little very, very slight, only because I'm in a very quiet studio environment. And I thought, wow, I never noticed that. There's a little It's not something you would even notice. If it were on right now, I would have already tuned it out. But I can hear it. And I've not noticed it for the 6 or 8 months I've had the amplifier. It goes to show you the things we get used to sound-wise. Speaking of which, this is a sound from our beautiful Earth. That's the wonderful sound of spring out on the porch. You hear the birds, but you also hear the trash truck. That was Wednesday morning, and in the city of Boston, that's when the trash gets picked up in our neighborhood. You can hear the trash truck going by, and yet the sound of spring and the beautiful birds. I was thinking about that all week, the idea that we have this background noise, might be other things going on, but above it, the signal is almost always louder. So, for a bit of old news, the inspiration for this episode of Earth Tones was an episode of Premier Guitar's Rig Rundown that happened about a month ago. If you want to see the interview, it's with Mark Spear from Krungbin, and the YouTube video is called Mark Spear's Krungbin Pedalboard 2026. And about halfway through it, at the minute 4.5 mark, Mark Spear says to John Bollinger, the legendary host, he says, "There's obviously some noise, but who cares? It's like a haze, the whiffs of smoke across the record, like Lee Perry blowing smoke across the master tapes." And they talk about noise inside the music and how David Byrne, in his book that I've referenced as old news recently, How Music Works, how David Byrne was talking about how background noise actually lets you have a psychological psychoacoustic effect where you can hear things and project onto it what you need to. And it kind of takes up space in a way that then creates a little bit of a background blanket that you can hear the music actually more clearly and relate to it a little bit more. So there's this psychological or psychoacoustic effect of having noise in the background that you can just kind of tune right into what's going on. And they were even saying it's almost like a Rorschach test where you kind of project onto it your own thoughts and feelings. You hear things in that hiss that you might not have if it weren't there. So, embrace the hiss. That's what we're talking about this week on episode 38. Here it is, episode 38. This is my notes and what I've been thinking about. We are often trying to eliminate noise, to quiet everything down. Then sometimes we want a bit of white noise because it's a little too quiet. We're constantly seeking that happy medium. When editing podcast audio or dialogue like an audiobook, you have to record what's called presence or room tone. If you cut from one line to another, you have to layer in that room tone so the essential background noise doesn't change. Silence, it turns out, is a strange interruption from what we're used to hearing, which is a general ambient amount of noise. When I'm in a quiet place, the tiniest amount of noise can drive me crazy. I become hyper-aware of it, like the hiss of my amp in a studio. And then, at a gig, I would think my amp was effectively completely silent. The thing is, that foundational ambient noise is like a blurry background, a slight cozy blanket. That's when it's under control, of course. If it's extreme, it's unusually, or usually, unpleasant. But a healthy amount of hiss or hum is just the standby electricity, the potential energy. If it's steady, we can learn to live with it, and pretty quickly it becomes simply the background we effectively tune out, and it isn't usually distracting. In fact, the hiss is kind of an invitation. It's laying down a blanket and saying, go ahead, play something. Once you're really playing, the noise problem typically goes away entirely. When you think about all the clubs with terrible power that Buddy Guy played in over the decades, with 100-foot-long guitar cable, standing on tables, playing a vintage Strat with single coils, I've never once heard that 60-cycle hum ruined the show. I really think that's true. I don't think Buddy Guy ever said, man, we had a great show in Detroit last night, but man, the noise, because I've got these single coils and those fluorescent lights in that bar, they just ruined the whole show. I'm sure some nights were better than others, but when they were really playing all together and rocking out, I highly doubt that the whole thing was getting ruined because of a bit of hiss. So, to demonstrate the idea of something that kind of masks the background, imagine I've just got something like this low E string ringing out. When we've got that ringing, it's taking up all sorts of space. And if you can't play the steady thumb, even if it was just ringing out, so that's a musical pad and little blanket, the background that takes up some of that space. But there's even just the ambient noise of just a guitar and this room. And if I were to interrupt that completely, and I'll do that as an experiment, I'll do a little edit so you can hear what I'm talking about. This is the general ambient noise currently. And this is if I cut it out. And maybe if you were driving in the car, you heard the highway and everything and your tires, and so you didn't notice. But if you listened on AirPods, then you would have heard that there was a bit of an interruption during that moment where there wasn't any room tone whatsoever. All right, let's talk about what's on the turntable this week. What's on the turntable this week is Solo Flight, The Genius of Charlie Christian. This is a fantastic collection from 1972. This is a 1972 double album where they write in the liner notes that this is sad to say close to equaling his total recorded output. So this is a lot of recordings with Benny Goodman, a few live recordings of him doing his own quartet, but mostly this is splicing together all of the tunes where he had a solo with Benny Goodman or anytime he was recorded. He unfortunately did not ever have his own session date where they just recorded a Charlie Christian album of just the tunes he wanted to play under his leadership. But man, this is an incredible collection. I'm sure you can hear it online. I think I have heard it online a few times since, but it's a wonderful part of my collection. 1972, The Genius of Charlie Christian. All these tunes are so fantastic, and one thing that's really cool about them is this is like such foundational electric guitar playing that he's listed in the liner notes as playing amplified guitar, which is really fantastic. And also, this is before a lot of the rules of jazz guitar had even been created, because he was laying the foundation of so much of what it is to play electric guitar that he's bending notes. He's playing all sorts of stuff. He's playing all sorts of bends and these wonderful runs. None of those are specifically Charlie Christian riffs, but he's bending notes for sure. All right, something that helped me this week. I made a packet of the things I want to practice. Sometimes we have too many things we want to play or that we have to be prepared for. And what I did was I just said, you know what, I'm going to print out a lead sheet of that tune. I'm going to print out that, bluegrass melody. I'm going to print out that Irish fiddle tune. I'm just going to print out some things that I want to be working on, that exercise. I'm going to put them in a little folder, and I'm just going to keep it in my guitar case. A couple classical pieces that I've been wanting to play. And so that if it's late at night and I've got my guitar, I don't have to think about what should I be working on. I just take out that packet. And that was just a cue. So something that helped me was just kind of organizing the work and making it much more digestible instead of this like grand scheme of what I want to work on. It was like just these 5 pieces of paper. If you put a little attention into these, even if you don't play them, but even if you've just set sight of these 5 pieces of paper every day, then you're working on them one way or another, and that was something that's helpful for me, the practice packet. All right, friends, that is episode 38. Thank you for tuning in. As always, my name is Jake Pardee, your host. You can visit jakepardee.com for more information about me and my music, or maritimerecording.com for more information about you and your music. I'd love to talk to you about doing some music lessons or recording an audiobook, could be anything. Doing your own podcast, come on by. Do something just like this. All right, I'm signing off. Always here to remind you we are a fantastically musical species on a delightfully musical planet. And I hope that you all enjoy a fantastic spring week this week. I will see you next time for episode 39.